Welcome to Let's Talk Clarity, the podcast where we have open and honest conversations. Hey, let me start with this. If you're raising or working with a teenager right now, this episode matters more than you think. Behind the eyes that roll, the silence, the I'm fine, and the door that shuts just a little too hard, there is often pressure. There is the self-doubt. There are emotions they just don't know how to manage right now. And there's the part that may surprise you. Today's teenagers are not weaker. They are not less capable. They are not more dramatic. They are navigating a world that is faster, louder, more competitive and exposed than any generation before. And many of them are doing it without the emotional tools they truly need. Welcome back to Let's Talk Clarity, the podcast where we have open, honest and empowering conversations about mental health and well-being. I'm Zeenat Noorani, the Clarity Coach, and I support families, schools, individuals and communities to build emotional resilience that lasts. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about exactly that, the emotional resilience in teens. What is it really? Why is it missing? And how can we build it? Not through one-off talks, but through consistent, daily, relational moments. Now, by the end of this episode, I'm hoping you'll take away some gemstones and you'll understand better why teens are struggling more than they ever were before, what resilience actually looks like in the real life, and what's missing in today's generation. What parents, teachers and schools need to do differently, and what teens themselves can start doing today, right now. But remember, this isn't about fixing teenagers. It's about equipping them with the understanding, the awareness, the tools and the knowledge and the strategies so they can navigate themselves with much more resilience. Let's start with honesty. According to the Young Minds UK, 1 in 5 young people, now show symptoms of anxiety or depression. NHS data shows probable mental health disorders in 17 to 19-year-olds has nearly doubled over the past decade. And here's what stands out the most. It's not just trauma. It's not just social media. It's not just exams. It's the chronic pressure without emotional processing. Let me tell you about a conversation I had recently. A 14-year-old boy sat across from me, hood up, shoulders slumped. His mum described him as lazy and unmotivated. His teachers said he had no or not really much potential. So when I asked him what was really going on, he said quietly, "I'm just tired of feeling like I'm never enough." That's what resilience looks like when it's missing. No rebellion, not laziness, not attitude. It's exhaustion. Because when young people feel like love or approval and identity are tied to performance, every test feels like a verdict to them. And when they don't have the emotional tools, they just simply shut down or lash out or even give up before they've even tried. Underneath so much teen behaviour lies fear. And underneath fear is self-doubt. So what's missing in today's generation? Downtime. Their nervous system really switches off. Emotional language. We've taught them how to revise, but not really how to regulate. Failure tolerance. Mistakes feel like they're catastrophizing them. It's catastrophic because identity is tied with performance. Secure attachment time. So families are much, much busier than they were before. So stretched thinner and also more distracted. And finally, the real world resilience building opportunities. There's less outdoor play, less boredom, fewer unstructured challenges. So we've built high achieving young people, but many of them are emotionally, totally exhausted. So I want to share with you the perfect student. Amira is 15, top grades, polite and reliable. But when she gets 1B instead of an A, she begins to spiral. I've messed up everything. Her nervous system reads these small mistakes as threats. This isn't entitlement, it's a fear of losing identity. When worth equals performance, resilience collapses. So let's take a moment of reflection here. Pause and ask yourselves, as parents, for yourself, and then think about your child. Do I celebrate effort more than outcome? Do I unintentionally reinforce perfectionism, them being perfect? And does my child feel safe failing in front of me? That safety is the absolute foundation of resilience. So pause the video here, pause the audio, just take a moment to reflect on those 3 key questions. Now, resilience is not, to just be strong. Toughen up. Don't let it get to you. Think about those words and how it might impact if you relay those words to young people. Or maybe, how did it impact you growing up? Resilience is the ability to experience discomfort without losing your sense of self. So the ability to experience discomfort without losing your sense of self. So neurologically, teens are still developing their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for impulse control, emotional regulation, and the rational thinking. It won't truly mature until their mid-20s. So when they react intensely, it's development, not defiance. Now, I once worked with a school girl where she was known as the dramatic one. And we've often heard many adults refer to children as the dramatic one. He or she is dramatic. She'd cry easily, react loudly, storms out of the lessons. But think about this. But when someone finally slowed down enough to ask what was happening inside her, guess what she came out with? It feels like my chest is exploding and I don't know how to stop it. Now that's not drama. That's her nervous system overwhelmed without a manual. And here's what I want every parent and teacher to remember. When a teenager is dysregulated, they are not choosing chaos. They are lacking the tools, and tools can be taught. New behaviors, new resilience skills can be taught. So what I want to do is share with you 5 core pillars of teen resilience that I've coached within my business. One is self-awareness. So name feelings. So naming the feelings will reduce the intensity. And often research calls this effective labeling. Number 2, emotional regulation. So pillar 2 is all about the breathing, the pausing, and the reframing. Number 3 is growth mindset, understanding the abilities developed over time. Now, if you want to look more into this, Dr. Carol Dweck's research is brilliant on this. So really getting them to understand that ability to develop themselves. The 4th pillar is connection. So at least one trusted adult dramatically lowers mental health risks. And 5, purpose. Teens who feel they matter cope so much better under stress. Right, let me share, it's sharing. I just want to put this by you, another reflection for teachers and parents to think about. So when your teenager opens up, okay, do you A, correct, B, solve, C, dismiss, or D, listen? A, correct, B, solve, C, dissolve, or D, listen? What do you choose? And guess what? Resilience grows with option D, to listen. Listening is absolutely fundamental, and it's also a tool that we really need to teach our young people more of, because the listening skills are the hardest, because it's taking that moment to just stop, pause, and just be. So let's be clear on this. What must schools do differently to be more impactful? So I'll be very, very clear here. A single wellbeing assembly will not build resilience. So those tick boxes that we do, or that you do in schools, that does not help. Consistency, consistency, consistency. So single wellbeing assemblies or events do not build resilience. A mental health week will not undo the daily stress. Yes, it may teach a little bit of emotional regulations and skills that you need. Some children may take it on more than others, but these are all habits that need to be changed. A bit like when we are born, we don't know how to walk. We learn those skills to walk, and we fall down and we get up and we learn, and then we go without falling, getting up in the morning, brushing our teeth, those daily habits. Okay, so again, it's all about a mindset shift. Yeah, so resilience requires cultural integration. That's right, cultural integration. So imagine if maths lessons included discussions about perseverance. So you're not just teaching them tool strategies, you're doing the maths curriculum and what the process is. But within that, you have the discussions, planting the seed about perseverance. English lessons are analysed with more emotional coping in characters. So again, embedding it even more within the literacy English lessons. PE lessons are great, included with the nervous system, regulation, training. It's a great place for that because you're doing a lot of individual and team things. So including that nervous system regulation. And then tutor time included emotional check-ins. So right at the beginning of the day, maybe just after lunch and before you go home. So having those check-in days, especially in primary school. Obviously in secondary school, it's about maybe during the morning registration and the afternoon registration, or if you do have an assembly. So finding those moments where you can plant those seeds and drip feed the information. Not once a term. Please don't do this once a term. It has to be all the time. Daily, daily, daily. And again, I'm going to repeat it. Drip feeding emotional literacy creates neutral pathways, and repetition creates regulation. Talking about cultural shifts, here's a real life scenario for you. A secondary school introduced 3-minute morning emotional check-ins over 6 months. Behaviour incidents reduced by 30%, believe it or not, and attendance improved. Students reported feeling seen and heard, not because they were fixed, but because they were heard. So it really does work. And what schools need more of is trauma-informed training staff. Okay, so that means training all staff, having professional experts going in, doing the training like myself, doing the regular workshops, the coaching. So checking coaching, building in that program, that helps. Have a peer mentoring system. Have a safe, quiet decompression space. Outdoor learning integration and consistent well-being curriculum embedded across subjects. It's not all about academics. Okay, well-being is a core foundation which then the academics can strongly be built upon. So please, it's not about adding more pressure, it's about changing the approach bit by bit. Right, I want to dive into, which is what I'm sure you're all waiting for, are the strategies, the practical strategies, which I'm going to break down into parents and teachers, so different sections, but some of them do overlap. So for parents, model emotional regulation openly and with honesty. I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm taking 5 minutes to breathe. So one of the most powerful things I ever saw was a father who in the middle of an argument just stopped and said, I'm feeling frustrated and I don't want to say something I might regret. I'm going to take 5 minutes. Wow. That moment did more to build resilience in his son than any lecture could ever do so. Because resilience is caught, not just taught. Our calm becomes their blueprint. So, modeling how to do emotional regulation. The other thing is, 2, Normalize failure. Share your own mistakes and what you've learned from them. So don't just share the mistakes, but also share how you've learned from them. What were the changes? How you became more resilient. 3, weekly emotional check-ins. So do have that time scheduled in for check-ins. What stretched you this week? Ask those questions and talk about, what stretched you as a parent or a teacher this week. Reduce rescue reflex. So what I mean by that is ask, what do you think would help? What do you think would help? And finally, number 5, downtime. Schedule in that white space, I call it. That simple, quiet, calm, and white space. For teachers now. So as for teachers, start lessons with grounding, breathing, mindfulness. You only need maybe 30 seconds to a minute. I know sometimes the mornings can feel like you're under pressure, but if you start to do this, it will just become easier and easier. And as a teacher, that was something that I started to do. And I left full-time education as a teacher, but when I'm supply teaching, I do that every time I go into different schools. Because also for me as a supply teacher going into schools, when I'm doing that, it grounds me and it builds that relationship with the class. Also ask reflection questions weekly. Again, finding the time where it fits in best for you. Praise efforts, which you do a wonderful job at, but sometimes the intelligence part comes in, so please be more aware that it's about effort, not intelligence. So think about the words that you are using. Also reduce public comparisons. Often we don't realize because we're just plodding along, and we're not plodding along, that's the wrong word. Life is so hectic in a school, that's what I want to say, and it's just go, 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 and sometimes we just don't slow down. We just need to take that moment to stop and think about what we're saying. And finally, continue to build collaboration over the competition side, really becoming aware of that. And as for teens, listening. So if you're going to put this on to a teenager or a young person, this is their tip. And I want them to hear this. Feelings are temporary. Identity is not. You're allowed to ask for help as a teen. Small progress counts for huge progress and changes and impact. You don't have to perform to be worthy. And it's important as teenagers, limit your comparison triggers online especially, okay? So really, really start to become aware of this. Right, let's dive into another real life scenario. I honestly believe that when I share these real life scenarios, there are so many people out there who this can resonate with. And I think it's important so we understand that we're not alone and that there are solutions and there are changes happening out there. So this real life scenario is about the teen who shut down. Now Jay stopped talking, started gaming more. Underneath was fear of failing his GCSEs. One question changed everything. Just one question. How are you feeling about school? But that was being in that room, asking him, not just as a pass-by question, but really being present. How are you feeling about school, Jay? Not have you revised? Feeling first, performance second. And guess what? That connection built resilience, and he opened up to so much more. And working on his emotional regulation and his fear of the GCSEs, he finally felt more confident, he had courage, and he flew through his GCSEs and beyond. So that one conversation can change everything. Ooh, the power of drip feeding resilience. Resilience being drip fed. Resilience is built in the way muscles are built, okay? So repetition, recovery, and consistency. Repetition, recovery, consistency. Tiny daily emotional check-ins create lifelong coping capacities. And I've said this before, okay? So repetition, recovery, and consistency, because we have to move away. We must move away from reaction to prevention. Crisis management to skill building. So let's shift reaction, prevention, crisis management, skill building, right? When we start putting in prevention and skill building, the reactions are going to be a lot less. The crisis management is going to dissipate. Now, I'm going to share a quote with you here. Children are not resilient because life is easy. They become resilient because someone helped them feel safe while life was hard. Just take a moment. Children are not resilient because life is easy. Children become resilient because that someone helped them feel safe while life was hard. But they also listened, and they showed them the way. Not telling them the way, they showed them how to manage their way. So here's what I want you to remember. Resilience. Resilience is not about raising tougher children. It's about raising supported children and young people. It's about building homes, classrooms, and communities where emotions are welcome and not dismissed, where mistakes are lessons, not labels, where young people feel seen before they are corrected. They need emotional language, more emotional language, more safe adults, more consistent connections, less comparison, less pressure tied to identity. And I've used that word identity throughout this podcast because it's huge. And let's start with conversation. Not one big dramatic talk, no, but small, consistent, courageous conversations. Because when we talk openly, when we listen intentionally, when we model emotional honesty and openness, we create clarity. And clarity builds emotional safety. Clarity builds resilience. Clarity builds growth. So start one conversation with your young person tonight. Ask them, what's been weighing on you lately? And then listen. Just listen. And now, if you're a parent feeling overwhelmed, if you're a teacher stretched thin, If you're a school wanting to embed wellbeing properly, then reach out to me, because resilience isn't built alone. And as I always say, if this episode spoke to you, share it, start a conversation tonight, reach out if you need support, because you do not have to navigate alone. Absolutely not. Okay, so before I end today's episode, I want to give you next episode's teaser, where we'll be diving into something deeply connected to resilience, and that is the hidden loneliness epidemic in youth. Loneliness isn't just about being alone. It's not about not feeling seen, and it's affecting more and more young people more than ever before. So make sure you tune in to my next episode. Until next time, keep talking, keep listening, and keep building clarity. Clarity creates courage. One talk at a time, because conversations matter. Thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk Clarity, the podcast where we have open and honest conversations around mental health and well-being. With your host, Zeenat Noorani.